The little girl's screams pierced through the forest like nothing Brielle Washington had ever heard in her 3 years as a park ranger. It was the kind of sound that made your blood run cold, the kind that told you something was terribly, desperately wrong. The sun was setting fast, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, and here was this tiny child, no more than 6 years old, running through the woods in a red dress that was torn and dirty, her face streaked with tears and mud, her voice hoarse from crying. "Mommy, Mommy, where are you?" Brielle dropped everything and ran toward the sound, her Green Ranger uniform catching on branches as she pushed through the underbrush. Her radio crackled at her hip, but she ignored it. Every second mattered. Children in the woods at dusk, alone and terrified, could mean tragedy. The forest was vast, over 2,000 acres of dense trees, hidden ravines, and treacherous slopes. If this little girl's mother was out here somewhere, hurt or lost, they needed to find her before full darkness fell. "Hey, sweetie, stop running," Brielle called out, but the child was in a panic, stumbling over roots and rocks, her small legs pumping with pure fear-driven adrenaline. Finally, Brielle caught up to her, gently grabbing the girl's shoulders before she could run into a particularly dangerous section where the ground dropped away sharply. The child turned, her brown eyes huge with terror, and threw herself into Brielle's arms, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. "I can't find my mummy. I can't find her. She fell down and she's not moving and I ran to get help but I got lost and I don't know where she is." The words tumbled out in a breathless rush, barely coherent between sobs. Brielle's heart clenched. This was worse than she'd thought. An injured adult somewhere in these woods, a terrified child, and darkness coming fast. She held the little girl close, trying to project calm even though her own pulse was racing. Okay, it's going to be all right. I'm Brielle, I'm a ranger here. I'm going to help you find your mummy. Can you tell me your name?" "Sophie. Sophie Turner. My mummy is Rebecca and she fell and hit her head and her leg was bent funny and she told me to run and get help but I don't know where I am." "You did the right thing, Sophie. You were very brave. Now we're going to find her together, okay?" Just then Brielle heard rapid footsteps approaching. She instinctively pulled Sophie behind her, unsure who might be crashing through the woods at this hour. But the man who emerged from the tree line was clearly not a threat. He was tall, well-built, wearing a bright blue athletic jacket and hiking gear, his dark hair slightly disheveled, his face showing concern and determination in equal measure. "I heard screaming," he said, slightly breathless. "Is everything okay? Can I help?" Brielle quickly assessed him. He looked trustworthy, professional. "This little girl's mother is injured somewhere in these woods. I'm a park ranger. We need to organize a search fast. Do you have a phone with signal?" The man immediately pulled out his phone, checking it. 2 bars. "I can call for help. What do you need?" "Call 911, tell them we need emergency services at Riverside State Forest, possible serious injury, exact location unknown. And tell them we need more searchers." Brielle was already pulling out her own radio, calling it in to the ranger station. The man was already dialing, his voice calm and authoritative as he spoke to the emergency dispatcher. Brielle noticed he didn't hesitate, didn't ask questions, just acted. That was good. They needed action right now. After ending the call, the man knelt down to Sophie's level, his expression gentle. "Hi Sophie, my name is Julian. I'm going to help find your mummy too. Can you remember anything about where you were when she fell? Were you near water? Or rocks?" Sophie wiped her nose on her sleeve, trying hard to think through her fear. There was a big tree that had fallen over. And rocks. Lots of rocks. And I think I heard water. Brielle's mind raced through her knowledge of the park. A fallen tree, rocks, water source. That could be several places, but the most likely spot was near the old ravine about a mile north. It was a dangerous area, easy to slip, and if someone fell wrong. "I think I know where that might be," Brielle said, looking at Julian. "But it's rough terrain and it's getting dark. Are you sure you want to come? This could be dangerous." Julian met her eyes steadily. "A woman is hurt and needs help. Of course I'm coming." Something about the way he said it, without hesitation or bravado, just simple determination to help, made Brielle trust him instantly. "Okay. Sophie, you're going to hold my hand tight, understand? Don't let go for anything. Julian, stay close. We need to move fast but carefully." They set off through the darkening woods, Brielle leading the way with her flashlight, Julian right behind them with his phone's flashlight, and Sophie between them, clutching Brielle's hand so tightly it hurt. Every few minutes they called out, "Rebecca, can you hear us?" The forest seemed to swallow their voices, giving nothing back but the rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. Brielle's mind was racing through worst-case scenarios. How long had Rebecca been lying there? Had she been conscious when Sophie left her? Head injuries could be catastrophic. A broken leg in the wilderness could mean blood loss, shock, hypothermia as the temperature dropped. Keep hope, Julian said quietly as if he could read her thoughts. We'll find her. Brielle glanced back at him, surprised by the steadiness in his voice. Most people would be panicking by now. You're very calm for a civilian. A slight smile crossed his face despite the circumstances. I don't panic. It doesn't help anyone. They pushed deeper into the woods, the beam of their flashlights cutting through the gathering darkness. Sophie was trying so hard to be brave, only whimpering occasionally, and it broke Brielle's heart. What this little girl must have gone through, seeing her mother hurt, running for help, getting lost. Have you ever wondered what you would do if a child begged you for help? Could you run into danger to save someone you'd never met? If this story touches your heart, please subscribe and comment below what you would do in this situation. Your thoughts matter to this community and we want to hear from you. After 20 minutes of hard hiking, they reached the area Brielle had in mind. It was a section where the ground fell away sharply, creating a ravine with a small creek at the bottom. Fallen trees crisscrossed the landscape, and loose rocks made every step treacherous. Rebecca. Brielle called out, her voice echoing. Rebecca Turner. For a moment there was nothing. Then faintly, so faintly they almost missed it, help, please. Mummy? Sophie screamed, trying to pull away from Brielle to run toward the voice. Wait, Sophie. We have to be careful. Brielle held firm, scanning the ravine with her flashlight. Then she saw it, a splash of maroon fabric against the dark earth about 15 feet down the slope. A woman was lying there, one leg twisted at a wrong angle, her face pale in the flashlight's beam. I see her. Julian was already moving, carefully making his way down the slope. Rebecca, we're coming. Stay still. Brielle quickly radioed their exact location to the rescue team, then looked at Sophie. Sweetie, I need you to stay right here, okay? Right here on this flat spot. Don't move. Julian and I are going to go help your mummy, but you have to promise to stay put. Sophie nodded, tears streaming down her face but her expression determined. I promise. Just help my mummy. Brielle carefully descended the slope, testing each step before putting her weight on it. Julian had reached Rebecca first and was already assessing her condition. When Brielle got there, she could see the situation was serious. Rebecca was conscious but clearly in severe pain, her left leg badly broken, a nasty cut on her forehead still bleeding sluggishly. Rebecca, my name is Brielle. I'm a park ranger. This is Julian. We're going to help you. Help is on the way. Can you tell me where you hurt? Rebecca's voice was weak but coherent. My leg. I heard it snap. And my head. I hit it on a rock. Sophie, is Sophie okay? Sophie is safe, Julian said firmly. She's right up there on solid ground. She was incredibly brave. She ran for help and she found us. Fresh tears rolled down Rebecca's dirt-streaked face. Thank God. I was so scared for her. It got dark so fast and I couldn't move and I thought. Don't think about that now, Brielle said gently, pulling off her jacket to cover Rebecca. The woman was shivering, going into shock. You're going to be okay. Sophie did exactly the right thing. You must have taught her well. Julian was already on his phone again. Yes, we found her. Riverside State Forest, North Ravine near marker 47. Serious leg injury, possible concussion, patient conscious but in shock. How long until the helicopter arrives? He paused, listening. Okay, we'll keep her stable. Please hurry. He ended the call and looked at Brielle. Medical helicopter is 20 minutes out. They'll need to airlift her from the clearing about 200 yards east of here. Can we move her? Brielle shook her head. Not with that leg. They'll have to bring a stretcher down here. But we can stabilize it. She looked around, spotting some straight branches. Julian, can you find me 2 more branches about this size? And I need something to tie them with. I have paracord in my pack, Julian said, already moving. Within minutes, he gathered what they needed. Working together, Brielle and Julian carefully splinted Rebecca's leg, trying to be as gentle as possible while she bit back screams of pain. Brielle found herself impressed by Julian's steady hands and quick thinking. He anticipated what she needed before she asked, worked efficiently, and kept talking to Rebecca in a calm, reassuring voice the whole time. You're doing great, Rebecca. We're almost done. Sophie is being so brave up there waiting for you. She told us all about your day together, about the picnic you had and the flowers you were going to pick. She's quite a talker when she's not scared. Rebecca managed a weak smile. She never stops talking. Tells me everything, every little thought that crosses her mind. I love it. She clearly loves you too, Brielle said softly, finishing the splint. There. That should hold until the medics get here. Julian had pulled off his own jacket to add to the covering, keeping Rebecca warm. Brielle noticed his arms were muscular, his movements confident but not showy. He caught her looking and gave a small smile. I've had first aid training, he said simply. Part of my job. What do you do? Brielle asked, partially to keep Rebecca conscious and alert, partially because she was genuinely curious about this man who had appeared out of nowhere and immediately stepped up to help. I run a medical technology company. Hayes Medical Technologies. We develop and manufacture equipment for hospitals. Brielle's eyebrows rose. She'd heard of Hayes Medical. They were huge, one of the biggest in the country. Which meant Julian wasn't just some helpful hiker. He was Julian Hayes, the CEO. She'd seen his face in business magazines at the grocery store checkout. But here he was, kneeling in the dirt, his expensive jacket covering an injured stranger, his hands gentle as he checked Rebecca's pulse, his voice calm and reassuring. No arrogance, no hesitation to help, just kindness. Above them, they could hear Sophie calling down, "Is Mummy okay?" "Yes, sweetie," Brielle called back. "The doctors are coming in a helicopter. Your mummy is going to be just fine." Rebecca squeezed Brielle's hand weakly. "Thank you. Both of you. I was so scared. I thought, if Sophie didn't find help, it's getting so cold." "You're safe now," Julian said firmly. "And when we get you to the hospital, I want you to know that all your medical costs will be covered. Don't worry about money or insurance or any of that. Just focus on healing." Rebecca's eyes widened. I can't accept that. I don't even know you. That's too much." "It's not too much," Julian said simply. "I have the means to help and you need help. That's all there is to it. Please accept. It would make me happy to know you and Sophie will be taken care of." Brielle watched Rebecca's face, seeing the pride warring with desperate need, the fear of accepting such generosity from a stranger battling with the reality of her situation. Then Rebecca's face crumpled and she nodded, tears flowing freely. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm a single mother and money is tight and I was so scared about how I'd pay for this and, thank you." Brielle felt her own eyes stinging with tears. She'd seen so much suffering in her work as a ranger, people who got hurt and worried more about the bills than their own health. But here was someone willing to just help. No strings, no conditions, just kindness. In the distance, they could hear the thump-thump-thump of helicopter blades approaching. Relief flooded through Brielle. Rebecca would be okay. Sophie would have her mother back. And somehow meeting Julian Hayes on this terrible, beautiful night felt like the beginning of something important, though Brielle couldn't quite name what. As the rescue team descended into the ravine with their equipment, Julian stood beside Brielle, both of them muddy and exhausted, and he turned to her with a soft smile. "I'm glad I decided to hike this evening," he said quietly. "Not for the circumstances, but I'm glad I could help." Brielle smiled back, something warm kindling in her chest. "Me too." The helicopter's searchlight cut through the darkness like a blade, illuminating the ravine in harsh white light. Brielle shielded her eyes, then quickly climbed back up to Sophie, gathering the little girl in her arms as the noise and wind from the rotor blades filled the air. Sophie buried her face in Brielle's shoulder, her small body trembling. "It's okay, sweetie. That's the helicopter that's going to take your mummy to the hospital where the doctors can fix her leg. Isn't that wonderful?" Sophie peeked up, her tear-stained face showing a mixture of fear and hope. "Will it hurt?" "The doctors will give her medicine so it won't hurt much at all," Brielle assured her. "And you know what? You're going to be able to see her very soon." Below them, the rescue team was working with impressive efficiency. 2 paramedics had reached Rebecca and were assessing her condition, speaking rapidly into their radios. Julian had moved back to give them space but stayed close, clearly ready to help if needed. Brielle watched him coordinate with the team, pointing out the terrain challenges, offering information about how long Rebecca had been lying there. One of the paramedics, a woman with her hair pulled back in a tight bun, climbed up to where Brielle and Sophie waited. "Are you family?" she asked Brielle. "No, I'm the ranger who found them. This is Sophie, Rebecca's daughter." The paramedic knelt down to Sophie's level, her expression kind. "Hi, Sophie. Your mom is going to be okay. We're going to put her on a special bed called a stretcher and lift her up into the helicopter. Do you want a ride in the helicopter with her?" Sophie's eyes went wide. "I can go in the helicopter?" "Absolutely. We need someone brave to hold your mom's hand during the ride. Think you can do that?" Sophie nodded vigorously, some color returning to her pale cheeks. I can be brave. That's my girl, the paramedic said warmly. What's your name, Ranger? Brielle Washington. Thank you for finding them, Brielle. And for stabilizing her. That splint probably saved her leg from worse damage. The paramedic's radio crackled and she stood up. Okay, we're ready to move. Sophie, hold tight to Brielle for just another minute, then we'll get you down there. The next 20 minutes were a carefully choreographed ballet of rescue work. The team brought Rebecca up on a stretcher, secured in a basket litter for the rough terrain. She was conscious, an oxygen mask over her face, her eyes searching for and finding Sophie. The relief on her face when she saw her daughter safe made Brielle's throat tight with emotion. Julian had climbed back up and stood beside Brielle as they watched the team prepare Rebecca for transport. I'm going to follow them to the hospital, he said. Will you come? Sophie might need familiar faces. Brielle hesitated. She should finish her shift, file reports, close up the ranger station. But looking at Sophie's scared little face, then at the determination in Julian's eyes, she found herself nodding. Let me call my supervisor. I'll meet you there. I'll drive you, Julian offered. Your truck is back at the ranger station, right? That's at least 2 miles from here. We can come back for it tomorrow. It made sense logically. But Brielle barely knew this man. Still, everything about him so far had been trustworthy. And there was something about the way he'd handled this crisis, the natural leadership and compassion, that made her feel safe. Okay, she agreed. Thank you. The paramedic gestured for Sophie. All right, sweetie, time to go with your mom. Hold my hand. Sophie looked back at Brielle, suddenly scared again. Will you be at the hospital? I'll be right behind you, Brielle promised. I'll see you there in less than an hour. I promise. Sophie took the paramedic's hand and was carefully helped into the helicopter. They could see her settling beside Rebecca, her small hand gripping her mother's. Then the door closed, the engine noise increased, and slowly the helicopter lifted off, its searchlight sweeping across the forest one more time before it banked and headed south toward the city hospital. Silence fell over the forest, broken only by the retreating sound of the helicopter and the normal nighttime sounds of the woods. The rescue team was packing up their gear, congratulating each other on a smooth operation. Brielle felt the adrenaline starting to drain from her body, leaving her shaky and tired. Julian touched her elbow gently. You okay? Yeah. Just crash after the rush, you know? I know exactly what you mean. Come on, let's get to the hospital. My car is parked at the north trailhead. They hiked back through the dark forest, Julian's expensive phone flashlight app lighting their way. Brielle called her supervisor, explaining the situation. He was understanding, telling her to take the next day off if she needed it, to file her report tomorrow. She thanked him relieved. You were amazing back there, Julian said as they walked. The way you kept calm, knew exactly what to do, kept Sophie from panicking. You're really good at your job. Brielle felt heat rise to her cheeks, glad for the darkness. Thank you. You were pretty impressive yourself. Most people would have freaked out. Life's taught me that freaking out never helps, Julian said quietly. There was something in his tone that suggested a story behind those words, but Brielle didn't push. When they reached the parking area, Brielle was surprised to see Julian's car was a modest hybrid sedan, not the luxury vehicle she'd expected from a CEO. He saw her expression and smiled. What, expecting a sports car? Maybe, she admitted. I spend too much time in traffic to waste money on a car that's just going to sit there idling. Besides, I'd rather spend money on things that matter. He opened the passenger door for her, which was such an old-fashioned gesture that Brielle found herself charmed despite herself. The drive to the hospital took 40 minutes. They talked the whole way, the conversation flowing surprisingly easily. Julian asked about her work, seeming genuinely interested in the challenges of managing a state forest. Brielle found herself telling him things she rarely shared, about the satisfaction of helping people, the frustration of budget cuts, the joy of watching families enjoy the outdoors safely. What made you want to be a ranger? Julian asked. My grandmother, Brielle said softly. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 8. She didn't have much money, but she'd take me hiking every weekend. Free entertainment, she called it. But it was more than that. She taught me to love the woods, to respect nature, to find peace in wild places. When I was old enough, becoming a ranger seemed like the perfect way to honor her. She sounds wonderful. Is she still around? Brielle's smile faltered. Yes, but she's sick. Heart disease. She lives with me, but the medical bills are. She trailed off, suddenly aware she was sharing too much with someone she'd just met. But Julian's expression was understanding, not judgmental. I'm sorry. That must be really hard. It is. I work extra shifts when I can, but it's never quite enough. The medications are so expensive, and her insurance doesn't cover everything. Brielle wasn't sure why she was telling him this. Maybe because he'd been so open with his offer to help Rebecca. Maybe because something about him felt trustworthy. What about you? She asked, changing the subject. How does a CEO end up hiking alone in a state forest on a weekday evening? Julian's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. I needed to think. Clear my head. I do that sometimes, just drive to somewhere quiet and walk. The woods seemed like a good choice tonight. Problems at work? Life problems, he said with a slight smile. Nothing dramatic. Just trying to figure out what matters, you know? I've been successful by most measures. Built a good company, made money, have a nice house. But lately I've been wondering if that's enough. If there's something more I should be doing. Brielle studied his profile in the dim light from the dashboard. That's a pretty philosophical question. Maybe that's why I needed a walk in the woods. He glanced at her briefly, his eyes warm. Though meeting you and Sophie and Rebecca tonight has definitely given me some clarity. Oh, what kind of clarity? That helping people directly, right there in the moment, matters more than any business deal I've ever closed. The look on Rebecca's face when she realized Sophie was safe, that was real. That mattered. Something in Brielle's chest squeezed tight. This man, this wealthy CEO, was sincere. She'd met enough people in her life to know the difference between someone who talked a good game and someone who actually meant what they said. Julian was the real deal. They arrived at the hospital to find Rebecca already in surgery. A nurse directed them to the surgical waiting area, where Sophie sat with an older woman in bright red clothing who was holding her hand. Sophie's face lit up when she saw Brielle. You came. You promised and you came. Sophie jumped up and ran to Brielle, hugging her tightly. The older woman stood up, smiling gratefully. I'm Patricia Turner, Rebecca's mother. Sophie's grandmother. The hospital called me. I got here as fast as I could. Sophie told me what you both did. Her eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Thank you so much for saving my daughter and finding my grandbaby. I'm just glad we were there, Brielle said, hugging Sophie. How's Rebecca? In surgery. They said the leg break is bad but fixable. No permanent damage expected. The head injury looks worse than it is, just a deep cut that needs stitches. She should make a full recovery, thank God. Patricia wiped her eyes. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't found them before dark. Julian stepped forward, his hand extended. Mrs. Turner, I'm Julian Hayes. I wanted you to know that all of Rebecca's medical expenses will be covered. The surgery, the hospital stay, medications, physical therapy, everything. You don't need to worry about any of it. Patricia stared at him, then at his hand, then back at his face. But why? We're strangers to you. You're people who need help and I have the means to give it. That's all the reason I need. Julian's voice was firm but kind. Please accept. It would make me very happy to know your family can focus on healing, not on bills. Patricia's composure crumbled. She took Julian's hand in both of hers, tears streaming down her face. God bless you. Truly. Rebecca is a single mother, an artist trying to make ends meet, and I'm on a fixed income. The medical bills would have buried us. This is a miracle. Thank you, thank you. Julian looked uncomfortable with the gratitude, gently extracting his hand and gesturing to the chairs. Please let's sit. It's going to be a long night. Can I get anyone coffee? Food. They settled in to wait. Sophie curled up between Brielle and her grandmother, clutching a stuffed rabbit Patricia had brought from home. Julian disappeared and returned with coffee, sandwiches, and a hot chocolate for Sophie. He'd even thought to bring coloring books and crayons from the hospital gift shop. As Sophie colored quietly, the adults talked in low voices. Patricia told them about Rebecca's art, how talented she was but how hard it was to make a living. About Sophie's father who'd left when Sophie was a baby and never looked back. About the struggles of raising a child alone, trying to make enough money to survive while still being present for your kid. Rebecca was taking Sophie on a nature walk for inspiration, Patricia explained. She's working on a series of paintings about motherhood and nature. It was supposed to be a perfect day. They'd had a picnic, found flowers, were heading back when Rebecca slipped on some rocks. Her phone flew out of her pocket and down the ravine, shattered. She told Sophie to follow the trail markers, but Sophie panicked and ran the wrong way. She was incredibly brave, Brielle said. Most kids her age would have fallen apart completely. Patricia smiled proudly. Rebecca's raised her to be strong. To speak up, to ask for help when she needs it, to be brave. I think those lessons saved both their lives tonight. Hours passed. Sophie eventually fell asleep, her head on Brielle's lap. Brielle found her own eyes growing heavy, the warmth of the waiting room and the exhaustion of the evening catching up to her. She felt her head starting to nod forward. Then a gentle touch on her shoulder. She jerked awake to find Julian standing beside her, a soft blanket in his hands. I found this at the nurse's station. Thought you might be cold. He draped the blanket over her carefully, his hands gentle, his eyes concerned. In that moment, Brielle saw something shift in his expression, something that made her breath catch. The way he was looking at her wasn't just kind. It was interested. Drawn. Thank you, she whispered, not wanting to wake Sophie. Get some rest, he said softly. I'll wait. I'll wake you when there's news. And he did. He sat in the chair across from her, keeping vigil, his presence somehow comforting in the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital. Brielle let her eyes close again, feeling safer than she had in a long time. When Brielle woke, weak morning light was filtering through the waiting room windows. Sophie was still asleep on her lap, drooling slightly on Brielle's green uniform pants. Patricia was dozing in her chair, a magazine fallen open on her lap. And Julian was sitting exactly where he'd been hours ago, though now he was on his phone, typing rapidly, his face illuminated by the screen. He looked up as Brielle stirred, and a smile crossed his tired face. Good morning. There's news. The surgeon came by about an hour ago. Rebecca's out of surgery and in recovery. Everything went perfectly. She'll be able to see visitors in a few hours. Relief washed through Brielle so powerfully she felt tears prick her eyes. That's wonderful. Did you sleep at all? A little. Someone had to keep watch. He glanced at his phone. I also took the liberty of calling my assistant. She's arranging for Rebecca to have a private room, and she's setting up accounts for all the medical billing to come directly to my office. Brielle gently eased Sophie's head off her lap, tucking the blanket around the sleeping child, and stood up, stretching her stiff muscles. Julian, you don't have to do all this. I want to. He stood too, and they moved to the corner of the waiting room, speaking quietly. Brielle, I meant what I said. I've been looking for purpose, for meaning beyond just making money. Helping people like Rebecca and Sophie, that's real. That matters. You're a good person, Brielle said softly. I'm trying to be. He paused, seeming to consider his words carefully. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Last night you mentioned your grandmother's medical bills. Would you let me help with those too? Brielle stiffened. No. I mean, thank you, but no. Rebecca needed emergency help. That's different. My grandmother's situation is ongoing, chronic. I can't accept that kind of ongoing support from someone I just met. Julian nodded slowly. I understand. But what if it wasn't charity? What if you earned it? What do you mean? My company is starting a new community outreach program. We want to partner with local organizations to provide medical equipment and support to underserved communities. We need someone who understands both healthcare and community needs, someone who knows the people and the problems firsthand. Someone like you. Brielle frowned, suspicious. Julian, are you offering me a job because you feel sorry for me? No, he said firmly. I'm offering you a job because you're clearly intelligent, compassionate, dedicated, and you have skills I need. The fact that it would also help your situation is just a bonus. You'd be working, earning a salary, making a real difference. No charity. Just a fair exchange of work for pay. But I'm a park ranger. I don't know anything about medical technology. You know about people. You know about community needs. You're clearly good in crisis situations. The technical stuff I can teach you. The heart and dedication you bring that I can't teach. That has to be there already. He pulled out his phone, showing her the screen. This is what I was working on just now. A proposal for the program. Take a look. Brielle took the phone, scrolling through the document. It was detailed, professional, outlining a comprehensive program to provide free or low-cost medical equipment, training, and support to communities that needed it. The salary listed for the community liaison position made her eyes widen. It was nearly double what she made as a ranger. This would be part-time to start, Julian explained. 20 hours a week. You could keep your ranger job if you wanted. Or if things work out, it could become full-time. There would be benefits, including health insurance that would cover your grandmother's medications. Brielle's hands were shaking slightly as she held the phone. This was too much. Too good. There had to be a catch. Why are you doing this? Because I can, Julian said simply. Because meeting you and Sophie and Rebecca last night reminded me what matters. Because I've been blessed with resources and I want to use them to help people. Because... He paused, a slight color rising in his cheeks. Because in the middle of one of the worst nights of that family's life, I met someone remarkable, and I'd like to get to know her better. Brielle's heart skipped. Julian? I'm not asking for anything inappropriate, he said quickly. I'm offering you a legitimate job that I genuinely need filled. If there's a friendship that develops from working together, that would be nice. If there's nothing more than a professional relationship, that's fine too. But don't turn down an opportunity that could help you and your grandmother because you're worried about my motives. Take it on faith that I'm being honest with you. Brielle looked into his eyes, trying to read him. All she saw was sincerity. Oh, and maybe, just maybe, a hint of attraction that matched the flutter she felt in her own chest. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay, I'll do it. Not because I'm taking charity, but because it sounds like meaningful work and I want to help people. Julian's face broke into a brilliant smile. That's wonderful. Thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me. Behind them, Patricia was stirring and Sophie was starting to wake. Brielle quickly handed Julian's phone back and returned to the little girl, kneeling beside the chair. Good morning, sweetie. Guess what? Your mummy's surgery went great. She's going to be just fine. Sophie's face transformed with joy. Really? Can I see her? In a little bit. The doctors need to make sure she's awake and ready for visitors. But it won't be long. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Turner family? Rebecca is awake and asking for you. She can have visitors now. They all stood up, Sophie bouncing with excitement, Patricia crying happy tears. The nurse smiled at Julian and Brielle. Are you family? They saved my daughter's life, Patricia said firmly. They're family now. The nurse nodded, her expression softening. Then come along. Room 412. They followed her down hallways that smelled of disinfectant and hope. Room 412 was bright, with windows looking out over the city. And there, in the bed, propped up on pillows, was Rebecca. Her leg was in a cast, elevated on pillows. A white bandage covered part of her forehead. She looked pale and exhausted, but her eyes were clear and filled with tears when Sophie ran to her bedside. Mummy? Sophie reached up carefully and Rebecca took her hand, squeezing it. Oh, my baby. My brave, wonderful baby. Are you okay? I'm okay. These nice people found you. Brielle is a ranger and Julian is a CEO and they found you and got the helicopter and you're going to be all better. The words tumbled out in Sophie's typical rush. Rebecca's eyes found Brielle and Julian standing by the door. Thank you. I don't have words big enough to thank you properly. Julian stepped forward. You don't need to thank us. I'm just glad you're okay. And I want you to know that everything is taken care of. All your medical expenses, the rehabilitation, everything. You just focus on healing. Rebecca's face crumpled. I don't understand why you're doing this for us. Because I can, Julian said simply, echoing what he'd told Brielle. And because your daughter's bravery and your mother's love and Brielle's dedication all reminded me of what truly matters in life. Consider it a gift with no strings attached. Patricia put her arm around Julian in a brief hug. You're an angel. A real-life angel. A doctor entered, clipboard in hand, smiling at the gathered group. Miss Turner, I'm Dr. Martinez. I operated on your leg last night. You had a compound fracture of the tibia and fibula, which we've repaired with plates and screws. The good news is that everything went perfectly. With proper rehabilitation you should have full function back. We'll keep you here for a few days to monitor for infection and manage pain, then you'll go home with physical therapy scheduled. How long until I can walk? Rebecca asked, her artist's hands clutching the blanket nervously. You'll be non-weight bearing for about 6 weeks, then gradually building up to full weight bearing over another 6 weeks. So about 3 months total until you're fully mobile. But you'll be using crutches and then a walking boot relatively soon. 3 months. Brielle saw the concern flash across Rebecca's face. 3 months of not being able to work, not being able to chase after Sophie, not being able to stand at an easel and paint. For a single mother and artist, that was devastating. Julian saw it too. Dr. Martinez, what kind of accommodation will Rebecca need at home during recovery? A place to rest with her leg elevated, help with daily tasks, assistance with her daughter since she won't be able to pick her up or run after her. It's manageable but challenging for a single parent. Julian turned to Patricia. Mrs. Turner, would you be able to stay with Rebecca during her recovery? Patricia nodded immediately. Of course. I'll move into her apartment. My place is just across town. I can manage both. Good. I'd like to hire a home health aide as well, to come in a few hours each day to help with physical tasks and give you breaks. And Rebecca, he turned to her, I know this is going to sound presumptuous, but I'd like to commission some paintings from you. Rebecca blinked in surprise. What? My company is renovating our headquarters. We need art for the walls. Original pieces that reflect our values of care, community, and innovation. I'd like to hire you to create a series of paintings. You can work from home at your own pace while you recover. I'll pay you up front so you don't have to worry about money during your recovery period. Tears were streaming down Rebecca's face now. That's too much. All of this is too much. It's not too much, Julian said gently. It's exactly right. You're a talented artist from what your mother tells me. I need art. You need income that you can earn while recovering. It's a perfect arrangement. Please accept. Rebecca looked at her mother, at Sophie, at Brielle, and finally back at Julian. Then she nodded, her voice choked with emotion. Okay. Yes. Thank you. I don't know how to repay this kindness. You don't repay kindness, Julian said softly. You pass it forward when you can. The doctor smiled at the exchange, then continued with his medical instructions, explaining medication schedules and recovery expectations. Brielle found herself standing beside Julian, watching this family begin to process their new reality. A reality where help had come from the most unexpected source, where a terrible accident had somehow led to hope and possibility. After the doctor left, they spent another hour with Rebecca, Sophie chattering away about the helicopter ride in the hospital and everything she'd seen. Patricia sat beside her daughter, holding her hand, occasionally wiping away grateful tears. Eventually, a nurse came in with Rebecca's pain medication, suggesting that she needed rest. They all said their goodbyes, promising to visit again soon. As they left the room, Sophie turned and hugged both Julian and Brielle tightly. You're my heroes, she said seriously. When I grow up, I want to be brave like you and help people. Brielle felt her heart melt. You already are brave, Sophie. You saved your mother's life by running for help. In the elevator heading down to the main floor, Patricia turned to Brielle. What are your plans now, dear? You must be exhausted. I need to get back to my truck at the ranger station, then head home to check on my grandmother. She's probably worried. Brielle realized with a start that she hadn't even called her grandmother to let her know she'd be out all night. Guilt washed through her. I'll drive you, Julian offered immediately. We need to go back to the park anyway. And then, if you're okay with it, I'd like to meet your grandmother. Brielle's eyebrows rose. Why? Because she's important to you. And because I'd like to discuss the job offer with both of you. I want to make sure she's comfortable with the arrangement. It was such a thoughtful gesture that Brielle found herself nodding. Okay. I'd better call her first though, let her know what happened. As they walked to Julian's car, Brielle pulled out her phone and dialed. Her grandmother, Grace, answered on the second ring, her voice sharp with worry. Brielle Marie Washington, where have you been? I've been calling and calling. I'm sorry, Grandma. There was an emergency at the park last night. A little girl's mother was injured in the woods. I had to help search for her, and then I went to the hospital to make sure they were okay. I should have called. I'm sorry. Grace's voice immediately softened. Oh honey, is everyone all right? Yes. The mother's going to be fine. Grandma, I'm bringing someone home with me. His name is Julian Hayes. He's the person who helped me rescue them and he's offered me a job. I want you to meet him. There was a pause. A job? What kind of job? Brielle, you already have a job. I'll explain everything when I get there. I love you. See you soon. The drive back to the state forest was quiet at first. Brielle was lost in thought, processing everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. Just yesterday evening, she'd been doing her regular rounds, thinking about what to make for dinner, worrying about her grandmother's upcoming cardiologist appointment. Now here she was, sitting in a car with a billionaire CEO who just offered her a job and covered a stranger's massive medical bills without blinking. You're thinking very loudly, Julian said with a slight smile, breaking the comfortable silence. Brielle laughed softly. Sorry? I'm just trying to make sense of everything. This time yesterday I didn't even know you existed. Now you've potentially changed the course of my life and definitely changed Rebecca's. Changed yours how? The job offer. The job offer. Meeting you. All of it. She turned to look at him. Can I ask you something personal? Fair trade. I've asked you plenty of personal questions. Why aren't you married? Or are you? I just realized I never asked. Julian's smile faded slightly. Not married. I was engaged once about 5 years ago. Her name was Victoria. We were together for 3 years. I thought we wanted the same things, but... He paused, his hands tightening slightly on the steering wheel. She wanted my money more than she wanted me. When I found out she'd been planning to cheat on me the minute we got married and she had access to my assets, I ended it. Learned a hard lesson about trust. I'm sorry. That must have been awful. It was educational, Julian said wryly. After that, I focused on work. Built the company bigger, made more money, kept my personal life simple. But lately, I've been wondering if I'm hiding from connection rather than just being cautious. What changed your mind? He glanced at her briefly, his eyes warm. Meeting someone who ran into danger to help a child she'd never met. Someone who works 2 jobs to take care of her grandmother. Someone who accepted help for others but wouldn't accept it for herself until I made it about work and dignity. That kind of character is rare, Brielle. It reminded me that good people exist. Brielle felt heat rise to her cheeks. I'm not that special. I'm just doing what anyone would do. No, Julian said firmly. Not anyone would. Most people would have called it in and waited for backup. You ran toward a scared child in darkening woods, no hesitation. That's courage. That's character. They arrived at the ranger station, where Brielle's old pickup truck sat alone in the parking lot. She retrieved her keys from the office, secured the station, and then led Julian back to her truck. I'll follow you to your grandmother's house, Julian said. What's the address? Brielle gave it to him, then paused. Julian, I should warn you. My grandmother is protective. She's going to interrogate you like you're planning to marry me or something. Julian's eyes sparkled with amusement. Noted. I'll be on my best behavior. The drive to Brielle's house took 20 minutes through the city. She lived in a modest neighborhood, houses small but well-maintained, trees lining the streets. Her house was a tiny bungalow with peeling blue paint and a garden full of wildflowers that her grandmother tended lovingly. Brielle pulled into the driveway, Julian parking on the street behind her. Before they could even get out of their vehicles, the front door opened and Grace Washington emerged. She was a small woman, her dark skin wrinkled with age but her eyes sharp and bright. She wore a bright red cardigan over a floral dress, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. She leaned heavily on a cane, her heart condition making her movements slow, but her voice was strong. Brielle Marie, you get in here right now and explain yourself. Brielle hurried up the walk and hugged her grandmother carefully. I'm sorry, Grandma. I really am. It was a long night. Grace's eyes moved past her to Julian, who was approaching slowly, respectfully keeping his distance. And who is this? This is Julian Hayes. Julian, my grandmother, Grace Washington. Julian extended his hand. Mrs. Washington, it's an honor to meet you. Brielle speaks very highly of you. Grace studied him for a long moment, not taking his hand. Her eyes moved from his expensive watch to his clean hiking boots to his face, assessing everything. Finally, she took his hand in a brief, firm shake. Mr. Hayes, come inside. You too, Brielle. You both look like you could use coffee and food. Inside, the house was small but cozy. Photos covered every surface, documenting Brielle's life from childhood to present. Grace directed them to sit at the small kitchen table while she moved slowly to the coffee maker, waving off Brielle's attempts to help. I may be sick, but I'm not helpless yet, Grace said firmly. Now, somebody tell me what happened last night that was so important my granddaughter couldn't call her worried grandmother. Brielle explained everything from finding Sophie to the helicopter rescue to waiting at the hospital. Grace listened quietly, her expression softening as the story unfolded. When Brielle got to the part about Julian covering all of Rebecca's medical expenses, Grace's eyes sharpened, focusing on him. That's generous, she said carefully. Why would you do that for strangers? Because I could, Julian said simply. Because it was the right thing to do. There's usually a catch with rich people offering charity. Grandma, Brielle said, embarrassed. But Julian held up a hand. No, it's okay. She's right to be suspicious. Mrs. Washington, I'm not going to pretend to be some kind of saint. I'm a businessman. I've made my share of tough decisions and not all of them were purely altruistic. But I have more money than I could spend in several lifetimes, and what's the point of that if I can't use it to help people when the opportunity arises? Humph, Grace said, setting coffee mugs in front of them. And what's this about a job offer for my Brielle? Julian explained the community outreach program, laying out the same proposal he'd shown Brielle at the hospital. Grace listened intently, occasionally asking sharp questions about salary, benefits, job security. Brielle realized with some amusement that her grandmother was essentially conducting a job interview on her behalf. Finally, Grace sat back, wrapping her hands around her own coffee mug. The salary you're offering is generous. Too generous for part-time work. It's market rate for a community liaison position with a major medical technology company, Julian countered gently. It's also conveniently enough to cover my medical expenses along with Brielle's other bills. That's a nice side effect, yes. Grace's eyes narrowed. What are your intentions toward my granddaughter, Mr. Hayes? Grandma. Brielle felt her face burning. But Julian didn't look uncomfortable. He met Grace's eyes steadily. My intentions are to offer her meaningful work that will help both her and the communities we serve. If, in the process of working together, a friendship develops, I'd welcome that. Beyond friendship. He paused, a slight color rising in his own cheeks. I'll be honest, Mrs. Washington. I find your granddaughter remarkable. But I'm not offering her this job because I'm attracted to her. I'm offering it because she's qualified and I genuinely need someone with her skills and character. If there's ever anything more than a professional relationship, that would be entirely up to Brielle and would have nothing to do with her employment. Grace studied him for a long moment, then looked at Brielle. What do you think, baby girl? Brielle took a deep breath. I think it's a good opportunity. The work sounds meaningful. The salary would change our lives, Grandma. You could get the medications your doctor wanted to prescribe but we couldn't afford. We could fix the roof before winter. I could maybe even save for the future instead of just surviving paycheck to paycheck. But, Grace prompted, hearing the hesitation. But I'm scared. It seems too good to be true. And I barely know Julian, even if he does seem genuinely kind. Listen to me, Grace said, reaching across the table to take Brielle's hand. You've spent the last 10 years taking care of me. Working yourself to exhaustion, sacrificing your own dreams, never complaining. When was the last time you let someone help you? When was the last time you accepted kindness without questioning whether you deserved it? Tears pricked Brielle's eyes. Grandma. Take the job, Grace said firmly. Take the opportunity. You deserve good things, Brielle. You deserve to be helped after all the helping you've done. And Mr. Hayes, she turned her sharp gaze back to Julian, if you hurt my granddaughter in any way, professionally or personally, you'll answer to me. Heart condition or not, I can still wield a mean wooden spoon. Julian's lips twitched with amusement. Understood, Mrs. Washington. I wouldn't dream of crossing you. What would you do if someone offered to change your life? Would you trust them? Would you take the leap? This story is about the courage it takes to accept help when we've learned to only give it. If this resonates with you, please subscribe to hear more stories like this. Comment below and tell us about a time someone's kindness changed your life. The conversation continued over breakfast that Grace insisted on making despite her fatigue. Julian proved to be easy company, asking Grace about her life, genuinely interested in her stories about raising Brielle, about working as a teacher before her retirement. He was respectful, engaged, funny without being overbearing. Brielle watched the interaction, seeing her grandmother slowly warm to him. Grace was an excellent judge of character. She'd had to be raising a child alone after her daughter's death, navigating a world that hadn't always been kind. If Grace approved, that meant something. After breakfast, Julian reluctantly said he needed to go home, shower, and get to his office. He had meetings he'd already postponed once. But before he left, he pulled out his phone and typed something, then showed it to Brielle. This is my personal number. Text me yours. I'll have my assistant send over the official job offer documents today, but I wanted you to have a way to reach me directly if you need anything. Brielle saved his number and sent him a quick text so he'd have hers. Thank you. For everything. Julian looked like he wanted to say something more, but with Grace watching them like a hawk, he simply nodded. I'll be in touch soon. Mrs. Washington, it was truly a pleasure meeting you. Drive safe, Mr. Hayes, Grace said, which Brielle knew was her grandmother's version of approval. After Julian left, Brielle helped her grandmother to the living room couch, getting her settled with her medications and a blanket. Grace looked tired, the excitement of the morning taking its toll. He's a good man, Grace said quietly. Not perfect, I'm sure, but good. Take the job, baby. Let good things happen to you. I will, Brielle promised, kissing her grandmother's forehead. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, my brave girl. Brielle's phone buzzed. A text from Julian. Thank you for letting me meet your grandmother. She's wonderful. And you're wonderful. I meant what I said. This job is real, but so is my admiration for you. Take some time to rest and think. We'll talk soon. Brielle read the message 3 times, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. Then she curled up in the armchair across from her sleeping grandmother, her own exhaustion finally catching up to her, and let herself imagine a future where hope was possible. 3 days later, Brielle found herself standing outside Rebecca's apartment building, a container of her grandmother's famous soup in one hand and a bouquet of cheerful yellow flowers in the other. The official job offer from Hayes Medical Technologies had arrived via email the day before. Everything exactly as Julian had described. She'd accepted immediately, overcome with gratitude and excitement. Patricia answered the door, her face lighting up with recognition. "Brielle. Come in, come in. Rebecca will be so happy to see you." The apartment was small but cozy, filled with Rebecca's artwork. Paintings covered every wall, vibrant landscapes and intimate portraits that took Brielle's breath away. Sophie came running from a back room, throwing herself at Brielle's legs in an enthusiastic hug. "You came to visit? Mummy said you would, but I didn't know if you really would." "Of course I came. I wanted to see how everyone was doing." Brielle handed the flowers to Patricia and followed Sophie into the living room, where Rebecca was propped up on the couch, her casted leg elevated on pillows, a sketchpad in her lap. Rebecca's face showed the strain of the past few days, dark circles under her eyes, but her smile was genuine and warm. "Brielle. This is such a nice surprise." "I brought soup," Brielle said, setting the container on the coffee table. "My grandmother's recipe. She insists it cures everything." "That's so thoughtful. Please sit down. Tell me everything. How are you? How's the ranger station managing without you for a few days?" They settled into easy conversation, Sophie snuggling between them, showing Brielle her coloring books and explaining in great detail every single picture she'd colored since coming home from the hospital. Patricia brought tea and cookies, joining them in the cramped but comfortable living room. "Julian stopped by yesterday," Rebecca mentioned casually. "Brought Sophie some new art supplies and me this." She gestured to a top-of-the-line laptop sitting on the side table. "He said I could use it to research for the paintings he commissioned and for anything else I needed. He also brought a contract, very generous terms. I'm supposed to create 12 paintings over the next 6 months. The advance he paid is more than I usually make in a year." "That's wonderful," Brielle said warmly. Rebecca's eyes turned shrewd. "He asked about you. Wanted to know if you'd been by, how you were doing. He seemed—" She paused, searching for the right word, "interested." Brielle felt heat rise to her cheeks. "He offered me a job. I accepted. We're going to be working together." "Just working together?" Patricia asked with a knowing smile. "I barely know him and he's my boss. Nothing's going to happen." "Why not?" Rebecca asked gently. "He's clearly a good man. He's interested in you, you're clearly interested in him. Why not see where it goes?" "Because it's complicated," Brielle protested. "He's wealthy, I'm not. He's my employer. There's a power imbalance. What if it doesn't work out? I can't afford to lose this job." Sophie piped up, her 6-year-old wisdom cutting through the adult complications. "But he saved Mummy with you. That means you're meant to be friends. Maybe boyfriend and girlfriend too." All 3 adults laughed at that and the tension broke. They spent the next hour talking about lighter things, Rebecca's art, Sophie's upcoming birthday, Patricia's plans to finally retire fully and move in with Rebecca permanently to help with Sophie. "I've been thinking about what Julian said," Rebecca shared quietly, her fingers tracing the edge of her sketchpad. "About paying forward kindness. I want to do something to help others once I'm back on my feet. Maybe donate paintings to hospitals or community centers. Maybe teach free art classes to kids who can't afford them. I don't have money to give, but I have skills. I can share those." "That's beautiful," Brielle said, touched by the sentiment. "It's the least I can do. A stranger saved my life and asked for nothing in return. How do you repay that?" "You live well," Patricia said softly. "You raise Sophie to be kind. You help others when you can. You create beauty in the world. That's how you repay it." Later, as Brielle was preparing to leave, Rebecca called her back. "Brielle, wait. I want to give you something." She reached for a small canvas propped against the couch, turning it to face Brielle. It was a painting of the forest at sunset, the light filtering through the trees in shades of gold and green, and in the center, barely visible in the shadows, was a small figure in a Green Ranger uniform, arms outstretched, protective and strong. It took Brielle's breath away. "I started it yesterday," Rebecca explained. "It's not finished yet, but I wanted you to have it when it is. You saved my life, Brielle. I want you to have something to remember that you're a hero." Brielle's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not a hero. I was just doing my job. You ran toward danger to help my child. You stayed with us through the night. You brought soup to a stranger. Those are the actions of a hero, whether you see yourself that way or not. Brielle accepted the promise of the painting with a lump in her throat, hugging Rebecca carefully, then Sophie, then Patricia. As she drove home, she found herself thinking about Julian's words at the hospital. About passing forward kindness. About making a difference. About matching. Her phone rang. Julian's name appeared on the screen. Her heart did a little flip. Hello. Hi Brielle. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. I wanted to check if you received the job offer documents and if you had any questions. I received them. I accepted. I'm excited to start. That's wonderful. The relief and happiness in his voice were clear. I was wondering if you'd like to come to the office next week, meet the team, see the space where you'll be working. And maybe... He paused and she could almost hear the smile in his voice. Maybe we could grab dinner afterward? To celebrate your new position? Brielle's practical side screamed that this was a bad idea. Her heart had other opinions. Is that appropriate? You being my boss and all? It's dinner between colleagues. To discuss the job. Nothing inappropriate about that. He sounded amused. Colleagues have dinner meetings all the time, Brielle agreed, matching his tone. Sure. When? Tuesday evening? I'll pick you up at 6. I'll meet you at the office. I need to maintain some professional boundaries here. Fair enough. I'll text you the address. Brielle? Yes. I'm really glad you said yes. To the job. And to dinner. After hanging up, Brielle found herself grinning like a teenager. Grace took one look at her face when she walked in the door and started laughing. He called, didn't he? It's a work dinner, Grandma. Is that what they're calling it these days? But Grace's eyes were twinkling, and Brielle realized her grandmother was genuinely happy for her. Excited about the possibilities. For the first time in a long time, Brielle let herself feel hopeful about the future. Not just the financial security the job would bring, but something more. Something that felt like the beginning of a story she'd want to tell someday. The Hayes Medical Technologies headquarters was an impressive glass and steel building in the heart of the city's business district. Brielle stood outside on Tuesday evening, smoothing down her maroon dress, the nicest piece of clothing she owned. She'd left her ranger uniform behind for the day, picking up extra shifts over the weekend to make up for the time she'd be taking for this new job. A text from Julian appeared. I'm in the lobby. No rush, come up when you're ready. Taking a deep breath, Brielle pushed through the revolving doors. The lobby was stunning, all sleek design and modern art, with a massive reception desk where a friendly woman directed her to the elevators. Mr. Hayes is expecting you. 10th floor. The elevator ride felt both too long and too short. When the doors opened, Julian was there waiting, and Brielle's breath caught. He was in a bright blue suit that made his eyes stand out, his tie slightly loosened, looking professional and handsome and somehow both intimidating and approachable at once. You look beautiful, he said simply, his eyes warm. Thank you. You look nice too. He smiled, gesturing down the hallway. Come on, let me show you around. The team is excited to meet you. The office was open and bright, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the city. Julian introduced her to what felt like dozens of people, all of whom seemed genuinely welcoming. His assistant Monica was a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who shook Brielle's hand firmly and said, Julian's been talking about you non-stop. It's nice to finally meet you. They toured the facilities, Julian explaining the company's work, showing her the research labs, the manufacturing areas where medical equipment was built and tested. His passion for the work was evident, and Brielle found herself caught up in his enthusiasm, asking questions, genuinely interested. This is where you'll be based, Julian said, opening a door to a bright office with windows overlooking the city. It was larger than Brielle's entire living room at home, with a desk, comfortable chairs, and shelves waiting to be filled. This is too much, Brielle protested. I don't need an office this nice. Yes, you do. You'll be meeting with community leaders, organizing donations, coordinating with hospitals and clinics. You need space that's professional and comfortable. Besides, he added with a grin, wait until you see my office. Then you'll realize this is actually modest. He showed her his office next, and he was right. It was enormous, taking up an entire corner of the building with views in two directions, a conference table, a sitting area with comfortable couches, and a desk that looked like it cost more than Brielle's truck. See? Modest, Julian said, watching her wide-eyed reaction with amusement. You could fit my entire house in here, Brielle said faintly. I didn't design it. I inherited it when I took over as CEO. Honestly, I'd be fine with something smaller, but image matters in business. Clients expect a certain level of success on display. It's impressive. Intimidating but impressive. They spent another hour going over specifics of her role, the projects already in development, the communities they hoped to serve. Julian had clearly put serious thought into this program, and it wasn't just for show. He genuinely wanted to make a difference. Finally, he glanced at his watch. We should head to dinner. I made reservations at a place I think you'll like. The restaurant was elegant but not stuffy, with warm lighting and comfortable booths. The hostess greeted Julian by name, leading them to a quiet corner table. As they settled in and ordered, Brielle realized this was the first time they'd really been alone together since that night in the woods. At the hospital there had always been others around. At her house her grandmother had been there. But now it was just the two of them and the air felt charged with possibility. Tell me about your family, Brielle said, wanting to know more about this man who'd walked into her life so unexpectedly. You mentioned you lost your parents young. Julian nodded, his expression growing somber. Car accident like yours. I was 15. My parents were coming home from a dinner party, and a drunk driver ran a red light. They died instantly. I had no siblings, no extended family really. I went into foster care for the last few years until I turned 18. Brielle's hand moved across the table, covering his instinctively. I'm so sorry. That must have been terrifying. It was. But I was lucky. My foster parents were good people. They couldn't afford to send me to college, but they supported me emotionally, helped me apply for scholarships. I worked my way through school, got my degree in biomedical engineering, started working at a medical device company. Eventually, I saved enough to start my own company, bought out some competitors, grew it into what it is now. That's incredible. You built all this from nothing. From foster care to CEO. He smiled slightly. It sounds like a movie, doesn't it? But it wasn't easy. There were times I nearly failed. Times I worked 100-hour weeks. Times I wasn't sure if I'd make payroll. But I had this drive, this need to prove that my life mattered, that I could make something of myself despite the losses. Your parents would be proud, Brielle said softly. I hope so. I think about them every day. What they'd think of the company, of the man I've become. He looked at her intently. Meeting you and Sophie and Rebecca, it made me think about what they'd want me to do with the success I've had. They were kind people, generous. My mom volunteered at a free clinic. My dad coached Little League for kids whose parents couldn't afford the fees. They believed in helping people. I'd lost sight of that, gotten caught up in business and growth and market share. But that night in the woods reminded me of their values. The waiter arrived with their food, giving them a moment to collect themselves. The meal was delicious, but Brielle barely tasted it. She was too caught up in conversation, in learning about Julian, in sharing her own stories in return. She told him about her parents, the vague memories she had of her mother's laugh and her father's strong arms. About her grandmother's fierce love and determination to give her a good life despite limited resources. About choosing to be a ranger because she wanted to help people, to protect beautiful places, to make a difference in small but meaningful ways. You're much more impressive than I am, Julian said after she finished. You've dedicated your life to helping others for very little money or recognition. That takes real character. I'm not impressive. I'm just a ranger. Stop doing that, Julian said gently. Stop diminishing yourself. You're brave, compassionate, intelligent, and dedicated. Those qualities are rare. You should be proud of who you are. Brielle felt tears prick her eyes. When was the last time someone had said something like that to her? When was the last time someone had seen her, really seen her, and valued what they found? Thank you, she whispered. It's just the truth. He paused, seeming to gather courage. Brielle, I know this is fast. I know we just met. But I can't stop thinking about you. About your courage that night, about your kindness with Sophie, about the way you take care of your grandmother. About how you look at the world with hope despite all your struggles. I'd like to get to know you better. Not as colleagues but as more. Brielle's heart was racing. Julian, you're my boss. This can't happen. It can if we're careful. If we're honest. If we put boundaries in place. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. I'm not asking you to rush into anything. I'm just asking for a chance. To take you to dinner again. To spend time together outside of work. To see if this connection I feel is real or just gratitude and adrenaline. What if it doesn't work out? What if we date and it falls apart and then I've lost my job? Your job is secure regardless. I'll put it in writing if you want. If we date and it doesn't work out, your position remains unchanged. I won't fire you or make things awkward. We're both adults. We can handle this professionally even if the personal side doesn't work. Brielle studied his face, looking for any sign of insincerity. All she saw was hope and nervousness and honest attraction. The same thing she was feeling. One condition, she said finally. Anything. We take it slow. No rushing. I need time to adjust to this new job, to this new reality. And I need to know that you're interested in me, not in the idea of me, not in some rescue fantasy. Deal? Julian's smile was brilliant. Slow and steady. Getting to know each other properly. Building something real. They finished dinner talking about lighter things, favorite movies and books, places they'd traveled or wanted to travel. The conversation flowed so easily, punctuated by laughter and long looks that made Brielle's stomach flutter. When Julian drove her home, he walked her to her door like a proper gentleman. He didn't try to kiss her, just took her hand briefly and squeezed it. Thank you for dinner. For taking a chance on me. Thank you for seeing me, Brielle said softly. After he left, she found her grandmother waiting up, pretending to watch television but clearly waiting for details. Brielle sat beside her and told her everything. He sounds serious about you, Grace said when Brielle finished. It scares me. What if I'm not enough? What if he realizes I don't fit in his world? Baby girl, listen to me. Grace took Brielle's face in her weathered hands. You are enough. You've always been enough. Don't let fear of what might go wrong stop you from experiencing what might go right. That man sees your worth. Maybe it's time you saw it too. That night, Brielle lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her phone showing a text from Julian. I had a wonderful time tonight. Sleep well. She texted back. Me too. Good night, Julian. And for the first time in years, she fell asleep with a smile on her face and hope in her heart. Brielle's first official day at Hayes Medical Technologies arrived on a bright Monday morning. She'd spent the weekend preparing, researching community outreach programs, reading everything she could about medical equipment distribution and healthcare access issues. Her Ranger uniform hung in the closet as she dressed in her maroon dress again, nervous excitement making her hands shake slightly as she applied minimal makeup. Grace was already up, making breakfast despite Brielle's protests. First day of a new job requires a proper breakfast, she insisted, sliding scrambled eggs and toast onto a plate. You need fuel for all that impressing people you're going to do. What if I mess up? What if everyone realizes I'm completely unqualified? Then you'll learn and do better, Grace said firmly. Stop doubting yourself. Julian hired you because he saw something special. Trust his judgment even if you don't trust your own yet. Brielle arrived at the office 30 minutes early, her portfolio of ideas tucked under her arm. Monica met her at the elevator, a warm smile on her professional face. Julian's in meetings all morning, but he wanted me to get you set up. Let me show you how everything works, introduce you to your team. Team. Brielle had a team. The concept still felt surreal. But Monica introduced her to 3 other people who'd be working on the community outreach program. Tom, a logistics specialist who'd handle equipment distribution. Kenji, a data analyst who'd track program outcomes. And Rashida, a social worker who understood community needs from the ground up. We're excited to have you, Rashida said warmly, her bright green headscarf matching her enthusiastic personality. Julian's been talking about this program for months, but he needed someone with real community connections to lead it. Your Ranger background is perfect. You actually know the people and places we're trying to serve. They spent the morning brainstorming, mapping out potential partner organizations, discussing which communities had the greatest needs. Brielle found herself relaxing into the work, her natural leadership emerging as she guided the discussion, asked thoughtful questions, and synthesized everyone's ideas into a coherent plan. At lunch, Julian appeared at her office door, 2 salads in hand. Thought you might like some company for your first day lunch break? That would be nice, Brielle said, her heart doing that little flip it seemed to do every time she saw him. They ate in her office, Julian asking about her morning, listening intently as she described the team meeting and the plans they'd started developing. His questions were insightful, pushing her to think bigger, to be more ambitious in her goals. Don't limit yourself, he said. If you need more resources, ask. If you need more staff, tell me. This program matters. You matter. Don't hold back because you're worried about the cost. I'm not used to having resources, Brielle admitted. At the park, we were always scrambling for budget, making do with equipment that should have been replaced years ago. The idea that I can just ask for what I need is strange. Get used to it. Your job is to do good work, not to worry about money. That's my job. He smiled. How's your grandmother doing? Did the new medications arrive? Yesterday. She's already feeling better. Breathing easier. The cardiologist said these are the medications he wanted to prescribe months ago but we couldn't afford. It's making a real difference. I'm glad. Julian's expression was soft. I know you would have done anything to get her proper treatment. I'm just happy I could help make it easier. They finished lunch and Julian stood to leave. I have a board meeting this afternoon but I wanted to check on you. Dinner this week? As colleagues? Brielle asked with a slight smile. As people who enjoy each other's company, Julian countered. Pick whatever label makes you comfortable. Wednesday. It's a date. He paused at the door. I mean it's a dinner. As colleagues, who might also be interested in each other. I'm going to stop talking now. Brielle laughed, the sound bright and genuine. Wednesday works. The rest of the week flew by in a blur of productive work. Brielle found her rhythm, her natural abilities complementing her team's skills perfectly. They identified 5 communities to start with, reaching out to local clinics and community centers to assess needs. The response was overwhelming. People needed so much medical equipment they couldn't afford, basic supplies they'd been doing without. On Wednesday evening, Julian took her to a different restaurant, this one more casual, with outdoor seating overlooking the river. The early autumn evening was perfect, warm but not hot, the sky painted in shades of pink and orange as the sun set. I have something to show you, Julian said after they'd ordered. He pulled out his phone, showing her photos. Remember Rebecca's commission? She sent me her first sketches. Look at this. The sketches were beautiful, showing various aspects of healthcare and community. A nurse holding a child's hand. A doctor listening intently to an elderly patient. A medical technician carefully calibrating equipment. But the most striking sketch was of 2 people in a forest, one in a Green Ranger uniform, one in a blue jacket, both reaching toward a small figure in red. She's capturing that night, Brielle said softly. Our story. She's capturing courage and kindness, Julian corrected. The universal story of people helping people. They talked about the outreach program, about Rebecca's recovery, about Sophie's upcoming birthday party that they'd both been invited to. The conversation was easy, punctuated by laughter and the kind of comfortable silences that happen between people who genuinely enjoy each other. Can I ask you something personal? Brielle said as they finished dessert. Always. Why haven't you found someone? You're successful, kind, handsome. There must be women lining up. Julian smiled wryly. You'd think. But most people interested in me are interested in my money or my status. After what happened with Victoria, I became cautious. Maybe too cautious. I focused on work, convinced myself that was enough. But it wasn't. I was lonely without really admitting it. Are you still lonely? The question was quiet, vulnerable. Not since I met you. His eyes met hers, serious and warm. Brielle, I know we're taking this slow and I respect that. But I need you to know that I'm serious about you. This isn't a game or a passing interest. You've reminded me what connection feels like. What hope feels like. I'm grateful for that. Brielle's hand found his across the table. I'm scared, she admitted. I'm scared of losing myself in your world. I'm scared of not being enough. I'm scared that this is too good to be true and something will go wrong. Those are all valid fears, Julian said gently. But fear shouldn't stop us from trying. What if nothing goes wrong? What if this is the beginning of something wonderful? Then I'd be the luckiest person alive. We'd both be lucky, Julian corrected. He squeezed her hand. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. The weeks that followed fell into a pattern. Brielle worked 4 days a week at Hayes Medical, keeping her ranger position for 1 day a week because she wasn't ready to fully leave that part of herself behind. Her evenings were split between taking care of Grace and spending time with Julian. They kept their relationship quiet at work, maintaining professional boundaries during business hours, but outside the office, they grew closer with each passing day. Julian was patient, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. They went on real dates now, not just colleague dinners. They went to museums and movies, took walks in the park, spent quiet evenings at Brielle's house where Julian would sit with Grace and listen to her stories for hours. He's a keeper, Grace told Brielle one night after Julian left. He sees you, really sees you. And more importantly, he respects you. Hold on to that. One evening, about 6 weeks after Brielle started her new job, Julian asked if she'd come to his house for dinner. He wanted to cook for her, he said. Show her his home. Brielle agreed, curious about where he lived, how he spent his private time. His house was in an upscale neighborhood, but it wasn't the mansion Brielle had been expecting. It was large, yes, but not ostentatious. Modern and comfortable, with large windows and a garden that showed signs of neglect. I'm not home enough to properly care for it, Julian admitted, showing her around. I should hire a gardener, but I keep meaning to do it myself and never find the time. The inside was beautifully furnished but felt somewhat empty, like a showroom rather than a home. Brielle noticed the lack of personal touches, the absence of photos or art that really meant something. It's very clean, she said carefully. Julian laughed. That's a polite way of saying it's sterile. You're right. I've never really made it a home. It's just a place I sleep between work days. They cooked dinner together, Julian proving to be surprisingly competent in the kitchen. He made pasta from scratch, a skill his foster mother had taught him. They worked side by side, comfortable with each other now, hands occasionally brushing, smiles exchanged over simmering sauce. After dinner, they sat on his back patio, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. Julian's hand found hers, fingers intertwining naturally. Brielle, I need to tell you something. Her heart skipped nervously. Okay. I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. Brielle's breath caught. I know we agreed to take things slow, Julian continued. And I'm not asking you to say it back if you're not ready, but I needed you to know how I feel. That this is real for me. Brielle turned to face him fully, seeing the hope and fear in his eyes, the courage it took to be this honest. She thought about the past 6 weeks, the conversations and laughter, the way he treated her grandmother, the kindness he showed everyone. The way her heart felt lighter when he was near, the way she caught herself thinking about him at random moments, the way she'd started imagining a future that included him. I'm falling in love with you too, she said softly. It terrifies me, but it's true. Julian's smile was like sunrise. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away, and when she didn't, he kissed her. It was gentle and sweet, full of promise and possibility. When they pulled apart, Brielle was smiling through happy tears. I don't want to lose myself, she said. I don't want to become someone who needs you to feel complete. I need to keep my independence, my identity. I don't want you to lose yourself either, Julian assured her. I love who you are. Strong, independent, dedicated. I want to walk beside you, not lead you or change you. We can be two whole people choosing to share their lives, not two halves desperately trying to become whole. That sounds perfect, Brielle whispered. They stayed on the patio until late, talking and dreaming about the future. The community outreach program was exceeding expectations. 5 communities had received medical equipment worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Brielle's team was expanding, and she was being invited to speak at healthcare conferences about innovative approaches to medical access. Rebecca had completed 3 of her 12 commissioned paintings, each one more beautiful than the last. She was walking with a boot now, attending physical therapy 3 times a week, healing exactly as the doctors had predicted. Patricia had moved in permanently, and Sophie was thriving, her brief trauma in the woods becoming a story of bravery rather than fear. Grace's health had stabilized with the proper medications. She had more energy, her breathing was easier, and her cardiologist was pleased with her progress. Everything was falling into place like pieces of a puzzle Brielle hadn't even known she was trying to solve. The community center in the south side of the city was packed with people, all of them gathered for the official launch event of Hayes Medical's Community Health Initiative. Brielle stood at the front of the room, a microphone in her slightly shaking hand, looking out at faces that represented everything the program was meant to serve. 6 months ago, she began, I was just a park ranger trying to make ends meet. I didn't know that finding a lost child in the woods would change my life completely. That night, I met people who showed me that kindness isn't just about feelings, it's about action. Today we're here because of that action. She gestured to the medical equipment displayed around the room. Wheelchairs, hospital beds, monitoring devices, all ready to be distributed to families who needed them but couldn't afford them. This program has provided over $2 million worth of equipment to families in need. We've partnered with 15 community clinics, 20 schools, and dozens of individual families. And we're just getting started. The audience applauded, and Brielle stepped back, letting Tom take over to explain the logistics of the equipment distribution. She found Julian in the crowd, standing near the back. He was wearing a bright blue shirt that made his eyes stand out, and he was looking at her with such pride that her heart swelled. After the presentation, people swarmed them with questions and gratitude. A mother whose son needed a wheelchair thanked Brielle with tears streaming down her face. A clinic director explained how the blood pressure monitors they'd received were allowing them to serve 3 times as many patients. A physical therapist described how the donated equipment was changing lives, giving people mobility and independence they'd lost. Brielle listened to each story, feeling overwhelmed by the impact their work was having. This was what mattered. Not money or status or impressive titles. This, people being helped. Lives being changed. Hope being restored. When the crowd finally thinned, Julian appeared at her side, slipping his hand into hers. In public. They'd agreed to keep their relationship private at work, but this wasn't technically work, and the gesture felt significant. You were amazing, he said softly. Natural leader. Inspiring speaker. You've built something special here, Brielle. We've built it together, she corrected. None of this happens without your resources and support. Resources are easy. Having the vision and dedication to use them well, that's the hard part. You did that. They left together, driving to Rebecca's apartment where Sophie's birthday party was already in full swing. The small space was decorated with bright streamers and balloons, children running around in that chaotic way that kids do at parties. Sophie spotted them and came running, throwing herself at both of them. You came. You promised you'd come. She was 7 now, the trauma of last year's accident becoming just another story in the tapestry of her childhood rather than a defining moment. We wouldn't miss it for anything, Brielle assured her, handing over the gift they'd brought. An art set, fancy colored pencils and paints and paper, everything a budding young artist might need. Rebecca greeted them warmly, moving easily now with just a slight limp that would probably fade completely with time. Her cast had come off 3 months ago, and her physical therapy was nearly complete. Thank you for coming. Sophie has been counting down the days. The party was joyful chaos, games and cake and the kind of innocent happiness that only children's parties can achieve. Brielle found herself relaxing completely, laughing at Sophie's excitement over presents, helping Patricia serve cake, watching Julian play tag with a group of kids in the small courtyard behind the apartment building. He's good with them, Patricia observed, standing beside Brielle. Natural with children. He is, Brielle agreed, watching Julian let a 6-year-old tag him dramatically, pretending to be devastated. You two are good together, Patricia continued. I see the way you look at each other. That's special what you have. It happened fast. Maybe too fast. Sometimes the best things happen when we least expect them. That night in the woods was terrible, but look at all the good that came from it. Rebecca's thriving, Sophie's happy, your whole life changed. And you found love. That's not too fast. That's just right timing. Later, after the party wound down and most of the guests had left, the adults sat around Rebecca's small kitchen table while Sophie played quietly with her new art supplies in the next room. Rebecca pulled out her laptop, showing them the final versions of all 12 commissioned paintings. They were stunning. Each one captured a different aspect of healthcare and community, but the final painting was the one that took everyone's breath away. It showed 2 figures in a forest, lit by soft light breaking through the trees. One wore a Green Ranger uniform, the other a bright blue jacket. Between them stood a small girl in red, all 3 figures reaching toward each other, their hands almost touching. In the background, barely visible, were more people, a community of support and care. It's called Finding Each Other, Rebecca explained quietly. It's about how sometimes we're lost and sometimes we find exactly what we need in the most unexpected places. Brielle felt tears pricking her eyes. It's perfect. Rebecca, your talent is extraordinary. Julian's company is commissioning 12 more paintings from me, Rebecca shared, her eyes bright. This time, showcasing different community health initiatives around the country. I'll be traveling, interviewing people, creating art that tells their stories. I never imagined I'd have this kind of career. You earned it, Julian said firmly. Your work speaks for itself. The conversation turned to the future. Patricia was officially retired now, spending her days helping Rebecca with Sophie and volunteering at a community garden. Sophie was excelling in school, her artwork already being displayed in the school hallways. Rebecca was healing and thriving, her art career blossoming beyond her wildest dreams. What about you two? Rebecca asked with a knowing smile. What's next for you? Julian and Brielle exchanged glances. They'd been talking about their future, carefully exploring possibilities. We're thinking about expanding the community health program nationally, Brielle said. There are so many communities that need what we're providing. Julian's been talking to other companies about partnering, creating a coalition that can serve the whole country. And personally? Patricia pressed gently. Brielle blushed. We're taking things as they come. No rush, but... She looked at Julian, but we're building something real. Something that matters. That's all anyone can ask for, Patricia said warmly. As they drove home that evening, Julian reached over and took Brielle's hand. Move in with me. Brielle's head snapped toward him. What? Move in with me. You and Grace both. My house is huge and empty. You're still in that tiny bungalow with the leaking roof and the heater that barely works. Grace would have so much more space, a proper bedroom on the ground floor so she wouldn't have to climb stairs. We could convert one of the spare rooms into an art studio for when Rebecca visits. There's a garden Grace could tend if she wanted. It makes sense. Julian, that's a huge step. I know. But we've been together for 6 months now. I'm in love with you, you're in love with me. We spend half our time at your place anyway, cramming into that little house. Why not make it official? Move into a space where there's room for everyone to be comfortable? Brielle was quiet for a long moment, thinking. The practical side of her brain was listing all the reasons this made sense. The emotional side was terrified. What about independence? What about keeping my own identity? You'd keep your job, your ranger work, your own life. We'd just be sharing a space, not merging into one person. Grace would have her own wing of the house if she wanted. You'd have space to breathe and be yourself. I'm not asking you to give anything up, Brielle. I'm just asking you to let me take care of you the way you've spent your whole life taking care of everyone else. The offer was tempting. So tempting. The bungalow was falling apart, and she didn't have money to fix it properly. Grace struggled with the stairs. The heating system was so old they were constantly worried it would fail completely. And more than the practical considerations, the idea of waking up next to Julian every day, of building a home together, of creating the kind of life she'd stopped letting herself dream about. Can I think about it? Talk to Grandma? Of course. No pressure. Just know the offer stands whenever you're ready. That night after Julian dropped her off, Brielle found Grace still awake, reading in her favorite chair. Grandma, Julian asked us to move in with him. Grace looked up, her expression unreadable. What did you say? That I'd think about it? Talk to you. What do you want to do? Brielle sank onto the couch. I want to say yes. I want the space and the security and the life he's offering. But I'm scared. Of what? Of losing myself. Of becoming dependent. Of forgetting who I am without him. Grace set down her book and leaned forward. Baby girl, listen carefully. You've been taking care of me since you were barely more than a child yourself. You work 2 jobs. You sacrifice your own comfort for others constantly. That man loves you and wants to give you some ease, some comfort, some security. That's not taking away your independence. That's partnership. That's what people who love each other do. They support each other. But what if it doesn't work out? Then you'll move out and rebuild. You're strong, Brielle. You've survived losing your parents, raising yourself in many ways, supporting me through my illness. A relationship ending wouldn't destroy you. But fear of what might go wrong could destroy your chance at what might go wonderfully right. Brielle felt tears sliding down her cheeks. You think I should say yes? I think you should stop punishing yourself for wanting good things. I think you should accept love when it's offered genuinely. And practically speaking, yes, I think we should move into that beautiful house where I can have a proper bedroom and you can have space to breathe and Julian can stop feeling like he's imposing every time he visits. But more importantly, I think you deserve to be happy. Say yes, baby. Choose happiness. The next morning, Brielle called Julian before he left for work. Yes. Yes. Yes, we'll move in with you. Grandma and I. We'll need time to pack and arrange everything, but yes. I want to build a home with you. She could hear the smile in his voice. You've made me the happiest man alive. When can we start moving your things? This weekend? Give us a few days to pack? Perfect. I'll arrange movers, take care of everything. Brielle? Yes. I love you. I love you too. The months that followed were the happiest of Brielle's life. Moving into Julian's house, their house now, had been surprisingly easy. He'd been true to his word, giving both Brielle and Grace their own spaces while creating shared areas where they could be a family. Grace had a beautiful suite on the ground floor with a bedroom, sitting room and private bathroom. She'd taken over the garden with joy, spending her days tending to flowers and vegetables, her health continuing to improve with proper medication and less stress. Brielle had kept her independence, continuing to work at both jobs, though she'd cut back her ranger hours to just 2 days a week. The community health initiative had grown beyond anything she'd imagined. They were operating in 30 cities now, had helped over 5,000 families, and were being featured in healthcare journals as an innovative model for medical equipment access. The relationship between Brielle and Julian had deepened naturally. They'd learned each other's rhythms, morning rituals and evening routines. Julian would wake early to go running while Brielle made coffee and checked emails. She'd spend her evenings sometimes with Grace, sometimes with Julian, sometimes alone in her own space working on ranger reports or community program proposals. They existed together without losing themselves, exactly as they'd hoped. Sophie and Rebecca had become regular visitors, along with Patricia. The house that had once felt empty now rang with laughter and conversation, filled with the warmth of chosen family. Julian had even started tending the garden with Grace, the two of them forming a close bond over shared soil and growing things. Everything was perfect. Almost too perfect, which was why Brielle felt a twist of anxiety when Julian told her he had something special planned for Saturday evening. Special how? She asked suspiciously. Or something nice. That's all I'm saying. His eyes were twinkling with secrets. Saturday arrived cool and crisp, early November bringing the first real chill of winter. Brielle dressed carefully in a new dress she'd bought, deep maroon that she knew Julian loved, and waited nervously. Grace appeared at her bedroom door, her own eyes suspiciously bright. You look beautiful, baby. Grandma, do you know something I don't? I might. But you'll have to wait and see. Grace kissed her cheek. Whatever happens tonight, remember that you deserve every happiness. Julian picked her up exactly at 6, looking impossibly handsome in a dark suit. He wouldn't tell her where they were going, just held her hand as he drove through the city and out toward the state forest. Julian, why are we going to the park? You'll see. He parked at the North Trailhead, the same place they'd parked that night almost a year ago. The forest was beautiful in the early evening light, leaves turned gold and red, the air crisp and clean. Julian pulled out a flashlight and offered Brielle his hand. Trust me? Always. They hiked into the woods, following a familiar path. Brielle realized with a start where he was leading her. The clearing where they'd found Rebecca. Where their lives had changed forever. But the clearing looked different now. Hundreds of small lights hung in the trees, creating a magical glow. A table was set up in the center, covered with a white cloth, candles flickering despite the early hour. Soft music played from hidden speakers. And arranged around the clearing were paintings. Rebecca's paintings, each one illuminated, telling the story of that night and everything that had come after. Brielle stopped at the edge of the clearing, tears already streaming down her face. Julian, what is this? This is me showing you where our story began. Where I met the most remarkable woman I've ever known. Where my life changed because a little girl got lost and you ran toward danger to help her. He led her to the center of the clearing, both of them standing where they'd once knelt beside an injured woman, where they'd worked together to save a life. The paintings surrounded them, beautiful and meaningful, capturing courage and kindness and love. Julian took both her hands in his eyes serious and full of emotion. Brielle, before I met you, I was successful but empty. I had everything money could buy but nothing that really mattered. Then you ran into my life, brave and beautiful and so full of hope despite all your struggles. You reminded me what it means to live, not just exist. To care, not just achieve. To love without holding back. He released one of her hands to reach into his pocket, and Brielle's breath caught. When he pulled out the small box, her tears flowed freely. You've taught me that true wealth is measured in the lives we touch, the people we help, the love we share. You've shown me how to be a better man. And I want to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of you. Julian knelt down on one knee, opening the box to reveal a beautiful ring, simple and elegant. Brielle Marie Washington, will you marry me? For a moment, Brielle couldn't speak. Her mind was flooded with memories. The scared little girl in a red dress. The injured woman in the ravine. Julian's steady presence through it all. The job offer that had changed her life. The slow building of trust and love. Grace's improved health. Sophie's laughter. Rebecca's art. The community health program helping thousands. All of it connected, all of it leading to this moment. She thought about her fears, about independence and identity and losing herself. But looking at Julian's face, seeing the hope and love there, she realized that partnership wasn't about losing yourself. It was about choosing to share your life with someone who saw you fully and loved you completely. Yes, she said, her voice breaking with emotion. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Julian stood, sliding the ring onto her finger, and then he was kissing her, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around while she laughed and cried at the same time. When he set her down, she clung to him, overcome with joy. How did you plan all this? The lights, the paintings, the privacy? I had help. Your grandmother knew. Rebecca and Patricia helped with the paintings. Tom and the team got all the permits to use the clearing. Even Sophie helped pick the ring. Everyone you love has been conspiring with me for weeks. I can't believe this is real. Believe it? You're going to be my wife. We're going to spend our lives making a difference together. Building a family. Creating a home full of love. That's real, Brielle. That's our future. They sat at the beautifully set table, Julian pouring champagne, both of them giddy with happiness. He'd had someone prepare a meal that was waiting in an insulated container, and they ate and talked and planned, surrounded by the magical lights and meaningful art. "I don't want a big wedding," Brielle said. "Just family and close friends. Something simple and meaningful. Whatever you want. Big or small, fancy or simple, I just want to marry you. Soon," Brielle added. "I don't want a long engagement." "Is that crazy?" "Not crazy. Perfect. Why wait when we're both sure?" Julian grinned. "Grace is going to be thrilled. She's already planning, I think." They stayed in the clearing until the sun fully set, the lights in the trees becoming more prominent, creating a fairy tale atmosphere. Finally, reluctantly, they packed up and hiked back to the car, Brielle stopping every few minutes to look at her ring, to make sure this was all real. When they arrived home, the house was lit up. Cars lined the driveway. Julian turned to her with a sheepish smile. "So, there might be a surprise engagement party happening right now." "Julian. Grace and Rebecca planned it. I just provided the house." They walked in to find their entire chosen family gathered. Grace, Rebecca, Patricia, Sophie, Tom, Rashida, Kenji, Monica, and a dozen other people who'd become important in their lives over the past year. Everyone cheered as they entered, rushing to congratulate them, to see the ring, to hug and celebrate. Sophie attached herself to Brielle's legs. "You said yes. I told everyone you would say yes. Can I be in the wedding? Can I wear a pretty dress?" "Of course you can, sweetie. You'll be my special helper." The party lasted late into the night, filled with laughter and joy and stories about how Julian and Brielle met, about the community health program, about all the lives that had been changed because of one terrible night in the woods that had led to so much good. Late in the evening, Grace pulled Brielle aside. "I'm so proud of you, baby. Look at the life you've built. Look at the happiness you've found. This is what I always wanted for you. Thank you, Grandma, for raising me, for teaching me to be kind, for encouraging me to take chances. I wouldn't be here without you. You would have found your way. You've always been strong. But I'm glad I got to be part of your journey." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "Your parents would be so proud of who you've become. I wish they could see this." "I think they can," Brielle said softly, hugging her grandmother. "I think they've been watching over us all along." As the party finally wound down and guests started leaving, Julian found Brielle standing by the window, looking out at the garden that Grace tended so lovingly. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Happy. Beyond happy. This has been the most perfect day of my life. It's just the beginning. We have so many perfect days ahead of us." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out, both of them grateful for the series of unlikely events that had brought them together. A lost child, a dark forest, a willingness to help strangers, and a recognition that sometimes the best things in life come when we least expect them. The wedding was planned for early December, giving them just over a month to prepare. True to her word, Brielle wanted something simple and meaningful. They chose the community center where they'd launched the health initiative, feeling it was fitting to celebrate their union in a place that represented their shared values and work. The planning was a joyful whirlwind. Rebecca designed beautiful invitations. Patricia helped coordinate the catering, insisting on contributing to the celebration. Sophie appointed herself the official wedding planner, taking her duties very seriously and carrying around a small notebook where she wrote down ideas in her careful 7-year-old handwriting. Grace was in her element, happier and healthier than Brielle had seen her in years. The proper medications, the stress-free living situation, the garden work, and the joy of seeing her granddaughter so happy had given her new vitality. She spent hours working with Rebecca on decorations, with Patricia on the menu, making sure every detail was perfect. Julian's company threw a party to celebrate the engagement, and Brielle found herself welcomed warmly by people who'd initially been just colleagues but had become friends. The community health program had made Julian more popular with his employees, who were proud to work for a company that genuinely tried to make a difference. A week before the wedding, Brielle finally gave notice at the ranger station. It was bittersweet, leaving a job she'd loved for years, but the community health work had grown to need her full attention. Plus, she admitted to herself she was ready to move forward, to embrace this new chapter completely. Her supervisor threw her a party on her last day, rangers and park visitors alike coming to say goodbye. But it wasn't really goodbye, she assured everyone. She'd still visit, still hike the trails, still be part of this community she loved. "You've done good work here," her supervisor said, shaking her hand. "But I think you're going to do even better work in your new role. We're proud of you, Washington." The day before the wedding, Brielle woke to find Grace already up, making her famous pancakes. It had become their tradition, special breakfast on important days. They sat at the kitchen table in their pajamas, just the two of them, savoring the quiet moment. "How do you feel, baby girl?" Grace asked. "Nervous, excited, grateful. All of it mixed together. That's exactly how you should feel the day before your wedding." Grace reached across the table and took Brielle's hand. "I need to tell you something." The seriousness in her grandmother's voice made Brielle's heart skip. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. But I need you to know that you've given me the best gift these last months. I was so tired, Brielle. Tired of being sick, tired of struggling, tired of worrying about you working yourself to death to take care of me. But this last year, with the proper medicines and living here and seeing you so happy, I've remembered what it feels like to actually live instead of just survive." "Grandma, let me finish. Tomorrow you're getting married to a wonderful man who loves you completely. You have meaningful work that helps people. You're healthy and strong and exactly who you were always meant to be. I'm so proud of you I could burst. And I want you to know that whatever happens in the future, you've already given me everything I could have wanted. I'm at peace." Brielle felt tears streaming down her face. "Don't talk like that. You're going to be around for years and years. You're going to see your great-grandchildren." "I hope so, baby. I truly do. But if something happened to me tomorrow, I'd die happy knowing you're going to be okay. More than okay. You're going to thrive." They held each other for a long moment, both crying, both grateful, both aware of how precious this life they'd built together truly was. The wedding day dawned clear and bright, unseasonably warm for December. Brielle dressed in Grace's old room, surrounded by the women who mattered most. Rebecca helped with her hair, Patricia adjusted her dress, Sophie carefully arranged her small veil, and Grace just sat in the corner, crying happy tears and insisting she was fine. The dress was simple but elegant, bright white with subtle details, exactly what Brielle had wanted. The ceremony would be small, maybe 50 people, everyone who truly mattered in their lives. "You're beautiful," Rebecca said, stepping back to admire her work. "Julian's going to cry when he sees you," Patricia added with a knowing smile. "Can I see?" Sophie begged, and Brielle bent down so the little girl could look at her reflection in the mirror. "You look like a princess. A real princess." The community center had been transformed. Lights were strung everywhere, creating a warm glow despite the afternoon sun streaming through the windows. Rebecca's paintings were displayed around the room, telling the story of how Julian and Brielle met and everything that had followed. Flowers were arranged simply but beautifully, bright splashes of color against white decorations. As Brielle waited in the side room, she could hear guests arriving, the murmur of conversation and laughter. Tom popped his head in, doing a last-minute check. 5 minutes. Everyone's here. Julian's waiting at the front, and I'm not exaggerating when I say he looks like he might pass out from anticipation. Brielle laughed, her nervousness transforming into pure excitement. "I'm ready." Grace appeared at her side, looking beautiful in a maroon dress, leaning on her cane but standing straight and proud. "Ready to walk down that aisle?" "More than ready." The music started, a simple guitar piece that Julian had chosen. Sophie went first, taking her role as flower girl very seriously, carefully scattering petals. Then Rebecca and Patricia, who'd agreed to stand up with Brielle as her attendants. Finally it was time. Brielle took Grace's arm and they walked through the door together. The room fell silent as everyone stood, turning to watch. But Brielle only had eyes for Julian, standing at the front in a bright blue suit that matched his eyes, his expression shifting from anticipation to pure awe when he saw her. He was crying just as Patricia had predicted. Happy tears streaming down his face, not bothering to hide his emotion. When Brielle and Grace reached him, Grace placed Brielle's hand in Julian's, then whispered something to him that made him nod seriously before taking his seat. The officiant began the ceremony, but Brielle barely heard the words. She was too focused on Julian's face, on the joy and love and promise she saw there. When it came time for vows, they'd written their own. Julian went first, his voice steady despite the tears. "Brielle, you ran into my life when I needed you most. You showed me what courage looks like, what kindness means, what love can be. You've made me a better man. You've given my life purpose beyond profit. With you, I've learned that the best use of wealth is to help others, that success is measured in lives touched rather than dollars earned. I promise to love you fiercely, to support your dreams, to stand beside you as an equal partner. I promise to keep choosing you every single day for the rest of our lives." Then it was Brielle's turn. She took a shaky breath, trying to keep her voice steady. Julian, when I found Sophie in those woods, I was just doing my job. I had no idea that helping her would lead me to you. You've changed my life in ways I couldn't have imagined. You've shown me that accepting help isn't weakness, that partnership doesn't mean losing yourself, that love can be both passionate and peaceful. You've given my grandmother the care she needed and me the space to grow. You've taken my dreams and helped me make them bigger, better, more meaningful. I promise to build a life with you based on kindness and hope. I promise to face challenges together, to celebrate victories together, to keep choosing love every single day. The officiant smiled. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Julian, you may kiss your bride. The kiss was sweet and deep, filled with promise and joy. The room erupted in applause and cheers. As they turned to face their guest, Sophie came running up, hugging both their legs, and they scooped her up between them, all three of them laughing. The reception was perfect. Simple food that tasted wonderful, heartfelt toasts that had everyone crying and laughing, dancing that ranged from elegant to ridiculous. Grace danced with Julian, then with Brielle, then sat with Patricia and watched with happy tears as the younger generation celebrated. Rebecca stood up to give a toast, her voice clear and strong. A year ago my life was falling apart. Literally. I fell in the woods and thought that might be the end of everything. But instead it was the beginning. Because two extraordinary people didn't hesitate to help a stranger. They ran toward danger to save me and Sophie. They accepted us into their lives, into their hearts. They've taught us that family isn't always about blood, it's about who shows up when you need them. Julian and Brielle, you saved our lives. More than that, you showed us what love looks like in action. May your marriage be as beautiful as the kindness you've shown everyone around you. As the evening wore on, Brielle found herself standing with Julian on the small patio outside the community center, stealing a quiet moment away from the celebration. The December evening was cool but not cold, stars visible above the city lights. Can you believe this is our life now? Brielle asked, leaning against Julian's chest, his arms wrapped around her. Sometimes I still think I'm going to wake up and find it was all a dream. That I'll be back in my empty house, successful but lonely, wondering what the point of it all is. But it's not a dream. No. It's better than any dream I could have imagined. He turned her to face him, his expression serious. I have something to tell you. I've been waiting for the right moment. Brielle's heart skipped. What is it? I've decided to step back from day-to-day operations at Hayes Medical. I'm staying on as chairman, but I'm hiring a new CEO. I want to focus full-time on the community health initiative. Building it nationally, then globally. Making it the primary work of my life. Brielle's eyes widened. Julian, that's huge. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything except marrying you. Making money isn't enough anymore. I want to make a difference. Real, tangible difference in people's lives. Like we did for Rebecca and Sophie. Like we're doing for thousands of families now. That's what matters. We'll build it together, Brielle said, her voice thick with emotion. Partners in everything. Partners in everything, Julian agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss. A commotion inside drew their attention. They went back in to find Sophie tugging on Grace's hand, pulling her toward the dance floor. You have to dance with me, Miss Grace? You promised. Despite her tiredness, Grace let herself be pulled up, and they danced to a slow song, Sophie standing on Grace's feet like Brielle used to do as a small child. The sight made Brielle's eyes fill with tears again. Your grandmother is remarkable, Julian said softly. I hope we're lucky enough to have many more years with her. Me too. As if sensing they were talking about her, Grace caught Brielle's eye across the room and smiled, a smile full of love and pride and contentment. In that moment, Brielle realized that this was what true wealth looked like. Not money or success or impressive titles. This love, family, purpose, people who cared for each other and showed up when it mattered. The night ended with all the guests gathered in a circle, Sophie in the center giving an impromptu speech about how weddings were the best thing ever and everyone should get married so there could be more parties. Everyone laughed, and in the warm glow of lights and love, Brielle caught Julian's eye. Thank you, she mouthed to him. For what? He mouthed back. For finding me. For seeing me. For loving me. Thank you for letting me. Later, as they drove to the hotel where they'd spend their wedding night before leaving for their honeymoon, Brielle thought about the journey that had led to this moment. A scared little girl in the woods. A terrible accident that could have been tragedy. A stranger willing to help without hesitation. All the small choices and big moments that had woven together to create this beautiful life. What are you thinking about? Julian asked, glancing at her as he drove. I'm thinking about Sophie. How scared she was that night. How brave. How if she'd run a different direction, if I'd been patrolling a different section of the woods, if you'd been hiking somewhere else, none of this would have happened. But it did happen. All of it. Every perfect, imperfect moment led us here. Do you believe in fate? Julian considered the question carefully. I believe in choices. Sophie chose to be brave and ask for help. You chose to run toward danger instead of away from it. I chose to offer help when I could have kept walking. We keep choosing kindness and love and hope. Those choices create our fate. Brielle smiled, reaching for his hand. Then I choose this. Every day. Forever. Forever, Julian agreed. Starting right now. They arrived at the hotel to find their room filled with flowers and candles. Another surprise from their conspiracy of friends and family. A note from Grace sat on the pillow. May your life together be as beautiful as the love you've shown others. All my love, Grandma. Brielle clutched the note to her chest, overwhelmed with gratitude for this life, these people, this love. Julian wrapped his arms around her from behind, and they stood together looking out the window at the city lights below, at the vast possibility of their future stretching out before them. What do you think happens next? Brielle asked. I think we wake up tomorrow and start our honeymoon. Then we come home and build our life together. We help more communities, touch more lives. Maybe we have children of our own someday. We grow old together, surrounded by family we chose and family we created. We keep choosing kindness and hope and love, every single day. That sounds perfect. It sounds like our story. And it was. Their story that had started with a little girl crying, I can't find my mummy, in the darkening woods, with a ranger who ran toward danger, with a CEO who chose compassion over convenience. A story about how one terrible night can lead to a lifetime of blessings if you're willing to help, to hope, to love without holding back. A story about how the best things in life come when we stop protecting ourselves from potential pain and instead open ourselves to potential joy. About how family is built through choice and commitment, not just blood. About how true wealth is measured in lives touched, in love given and received, in the difference we make in the world. Their story. And it was only just beginning.